Welcome to the Dr. Bros, where we have an honest discussion around vet life in and out of the clinic. My name is Jeff. I'm your doc of the day and your guide through this episode. I'm here with my closest vet school friends.
Hey, this is Chris. I'm a veterinarian in North Carolina.
Hey, this is Brandon. I'm a small animal internal medicine resident at Iowa State in Ames, Iowa.
And this is Jeff, and I am a veterinarian in Louisville, Kentucky, and also residency trained in dermatology. And I'll mention really briefly, producer Adam is in the producer box, so he's not here chatting with us, but he is here. And we have a guest in the house, so I'll go ahead and introduce her. This is Dr. Rachael Wooten. She is a passionate shelter medicine veterinarian with 5 years of experience. She proudly represents her Black and Puerto Rican heritage. She earned a DVM from Tuskegee 2017, same as every other host on this podcast. After graduation, she completed a shelter medicine specialty internship at the University of Illinois College of Veterinary Medicine, and she currently serves as the medical director at One Tail at a Time Rescue in Chicago. And she has recently completed a shelter medicine fellowship through the UW-Madison and UC Davis. Dr. Wooten actively advocates for diversity, equity, and inclusion within the veterinary community. Her commitment to fostering an inclusive environment is underscored by her completion of the Care Ready certificate and serving on multiple DEI boards, further enriching her ability to make a meaningful impact in the field of animal welfare. Welcome, Rachael Wooten.
Hi, guys. I'm back.
So glad to have you back for today. And before we get started, or I guess as we get started, I was going to start off with a little game. So this is called Pet, as in pet the animal, Adopt, Release. Pet, adopt, release, like release into the wild. And I'm going to give you 3 animals, and everybody will go around and decide who would you pet, which one would you adopt, and which one would you release. Everybody got it?
Yeah.
Got it.
Great. Yep. So, pet, adopt, release, a mastodon, a pterodactyl, a saber-toothed tiger. And if you got that reference, kudos to you. I'm not even going to say it.
Hey, this is Chris. I'll go first. We'll pet the pterodactyl. That was one of them, right?
Yes.
We will adopt the mastodon, and we're going to release the saber-tooth.
That's valid.
I don't know. I feel like, yeah. I don't know. I feel like that's a little bit like Tiger King type stuff going on there, so we keep them.
This is Jeff. I was literally thinking Tiger King. So mine would be, I'm definitely releasing the saber-toothed tiger in the wild. That sounds very dangerous. I'm going to keep the mastodon, and I don't know, maybe I can use it around the house. Maybe I can use like a ladder. It can help me like lift it up on its trunk or something.
No.
And then I'll just also petting the pterodactyl by default, honestly. And that's kind of big to be in your house. Mastodon's going to be outside anyway. I don't know.
They're all huge.
Yeah. These are all really large animals.
Correct.
Okay, I could go. So this is Rachael. So I'm going to adopt the saber-toothed tiger. Big cat. I mean, what could go wrong?
Work.
I guess I will just... Oh, wait. I thought I could keep 2, so let me change this real quick, because I want the pterodactyl. Because I feel like the pterodactyl will be very useful, because like they could deliver messages or something. But low-key Jurassic Park kind of scared me with them, so I don't really know if I actually want them in my house, but...
Valid.
So maybe I'll adopt that. And then I guess I just... What's the last one? Release the mastodon? I didn't really know what that was at first, so I was like, I'm just going to let that one go. I had a thing for a second. I was like, what the heck is that? What is he talking about?
A mammoth? It's basically a mammoth.
Yeah, I know. Well, now I know. I was like, wait. Okay. It took me a second, so I was like, I'm just going to let that one go. I don't know what that is.
This is Brandon. I'm going to pet the mastodon. I'm keeping the saber-tooth. And I don't want anything to do with the pterodactyl. That thing is probably going to try and eat me in my sleep. As scary as a saber-tooth might be.
The saber-tooth won't?
No.
No.
It's a big cat.
No, that thing has...
As long as you keep
That
it
pterodactyl.
fed.
That pterodactyl.
I agree.
That's right.
I agree. If you keep the cat
Yeah.
fed.
That pterodactyl has reptile brain. It's just going to be like, when's he going to go to bed?
True.
I'm going to take him to my babies like in Jurassic
safe.
Park.
Yeah, see,
Yeah,
they're not safe.
no.
I go back.
Yeah,
That thing's gone.
totally. Nope.
Oh
Nope.
my god.
Bye.
I'm almost in tears. That was great. So I'll shift us a little bit into our main topic. So today we wanted to talk a little bit about diversity, and we've got a all-star cast, I feel like, as far as just how our friendship group came apart. Oh my goodness, came together. So, just so like listeners kind of know, since you can't actually see us, so I happen to be Black and I'm also gay. Everybody else here is straight, but that's fine. We also have Brandon happens to be white. Chris happens to be white and Latino. Adam is a white guy, and then Rachel is Latinx, and that's a combination of her Afro-Latino descent, being part Puerto Rican and part Black, which I think is outstanding. So we should get some really good views here and kind of talk about, well, one of the reasons we wanted to kind of bring this up is because diversity in general makes our field better. There's a large lack of diversity in the veterinary medicine field, so a lot of people don't know that less than 2% of veterinarians are Black. And I think the number, don't quote me, so I won't say an exact number, but that number as far as Latinos is very small as well. So there's also a small number. I know it's less than 10 for our Asian colleagues. And then honestly, the rest of our field is made up of white people, which is not a bad thing by any means, but there are some ways that we can really come together and also diversify the field so that we're all seeing other people's views and becoming more cohesive and a better environment, just making us all better. And I wanted to kind of ask this to the group. So anybody can answer, everybody should answer, but what are ways that you guys can think of as far as how can our profession, veterinary medicine as a whole, benefit from increased diversity?
I can start. This is Brandon. I think for me, one thing that would benefit, like not just the veterinary community as like the teams, the doctors, the staff, the CSRs, the people in the building, but really more of the community itself. I think we've talked about this before, but like kind of being role models for the community and for other people, having a more diverse group of people in the veterinary community I think will be more inspiring and to like more diverse groups across the entire like country and the people that come into our clinic and see us. I'm sure that there are, areas of the country and, areas of our, like, especially locally here, Ames is a very white place, just to full disclosure, in the middle of the Midwest, but having a more diverse group of veterinarians, veterinary staff, CSRs, I think that goes a long way in the community. And for those people that are in our community that are, in the minority, it can give them some, like being a role model and giving them some inspiration to pursue that kind of career.
This is Jeff, and I 100% agree with that, Brandon. And one thing that kind of growing up being like a Black kid in vet med is I really didn't see anybody in the profession that looked like me. I did not realize that there were Black vets, honestly, until I kind of got into college. And I'm a very stubborn person in general, so I was just like, I'm going to do this because I want to do it, and it's something I'm interested in. But it was cool once I finally got into Tuskegee and then other places, like seeing other people who look like me does make it kind of easier to visualize yourself in that career. So I hope that I can be that for other people. And I also like the idea of when we increase diversity in the clinic, are the people that we serve. So veterinary medicine is heavily a service industry, and my clients, when some of them see me, and some of them have literally said, I've never seen a Black veterinarian before. Actually, that happened this year. And it's not been the first time. from a client that happened to be Black, and they're like, I'm just like floored that you exist. And I think that's awesome, but also the other side of it is I wish it didn't have to be. And if we could increase that, we can also not only share our experiences, let other people know we're here, but also really learn from each other and enrich our field.
Yeah, I mean, I think following up on that too is that, like, especially like, so I work in shelter medicine, right? So a lot of that's community medicine too, and trying to fill these voids, like these veterinary deserts, right? Just like in the human field, there's just areas where there's no access to care whatsoever. And so a lot of that is in under-resourced areas, underserved communities. So what you're saying, like, yeah, having Black veterinarians be there and Hispanic veterinarians, LGBTQ+, like all of this stuff matters because of how you're saying, like our clients that we see, they all identify in different ways than the, standard veterinarian, which is what, 99% now, like not that, but white females, right? So it's just really important because inherently we trust people who look like us. Whether we mean to or not, we have all these biases. And so when you're trying to advocate for animals and advocate for treatments and things like that, I'm more likely going to trust someone who looks like my aunt, my uncle, like someone that I know than just anyone else down the street. So just having representation matters so much more than people give credit to. And I'm really happy that it's starting to be discussed more and starting to be looked into a lot more. Like, how can we increase this diversity? Because like you said, I've had clients who just said, oh my gosh, like my daughter wants to do this. Can she come talk to you? Because she doesn't think she could do it because of she's never seen anyone like this. Like no one has reached out to her. No one wants to be a mentor. It's just like all these differences. And when you see it, you can believe it. So I just think it's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And totally agree. And I wanted to ask for our Latino guests and hosts, are there any experiences that you've had in that field? And Rachel, you can certainly chime in for like as being from Latino background in last names and also being Black. And then Chris from being Latino, and I'll answer for the Black answer as well. But are there any challenges or things that you've seen at work that have been related to being a part of a marginalized group?
I'll go. This is Chris. And I guess this also just depends on where you live too, and kind of growing up. Because the situation I'm going to say it is not really an issue back in Florida. Where I grew up, just because there's more of a Hispanic Latin community down there, so it's just different culturally. But up here, I've had, and it's been a minute since this has happened, but I've had someone call in and they said, "Oh, you have an appointment with Dr. Hernandez," and they said, "Does he speak Spanish or English?" And I was like, "That's funny. That's all I speak really is English because I don't really speak Spanish very well at all." So it's happened. That's probably the only time instance where I can say. But I think it's also just where you're at too, and that's something you have to deal with. But it's something also just letting them know, like, hey, we can do everything. We know everything that we need to know, and we do speak English, and we do everything just fine, and it's not anything bad. I think it was more just a curiosity of it, but. Again, it's something we do have to deal with from time to time.
Yeah, I've had something I haven't had similar. Like I have Wooten as my last name, so my mom's maiden name is Hernandez, which is funny. But
I love it.
It's more so for me, like the microaggressions I get a lot. There's so many, like it's scary. Like microaggressions every day you almost get. It almost becomes something that you just are used to hearing. And so like those, like about my hair, like, oh, should I wear my natural hair because will they think I'm unprofessional, or should I straighten it because that's just considered professional. And it took me a lot to like just start wearing my natural hair, wearing braids, things like that. And it shouldn't be like that. It's sad that it is perceived that way. I don't know if you guys ever had this experience, but in school, when I was applying to internships or externships, really like preceptors during fourth year, I had places that never heard of Tuskegee at all. So like it being the only historical Black college university, they had no idea it existed. So they constantly were asking me, is this even accredited? Like, is this a school? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just a fourth year. Yeah, this is real. And so like, just thinking even like that, like you hear of Auburn, you hear of like these really big schools, and they never get questioned. And I can guarantee you people coming out of those schools sometimes should be questioned, but just because they have the name like Cornell, it doesn't matter, So it's interesting, and like I don't know if that's because it's a HBCU. A lot of people don't know about HBCUs in general, but that was something that I felt was an issue, like a couple times, not very often, not very frequently, but it was something that stood out to me, and it actually made me not go to their clinic at all, even though she's very nice and apologetic about it. I was just like, I don't really think I'm gonna like it there, like that culture, so didn't want to subject myself to it, and going from there. So it's little things like that you constantly face. I don't know. What about you, JT or Jeff?
Yeah, you can call me either.
It's like you say Jeff now.
This is Jeff. I get called JT or Jeff, listeners, because I went by JT in all of vet school, so both are safe here. But as far as like the microaggressions, yeah, I do see it. I've definitely gotten the questionable Tuskegee, like the question mark at the end of the sentence, and people who are like, is it a good school? Is it a real school? Versus people who simply don't know it exists. Which not knowing it exists, fine. I actually don't take offense to that, but it's the people who are like, who actively know it's an HBU, and then you can feel the bias in their sentence when they just assume it's not accredited, which it absolutely is, and is an excellent school. Another thing I can mention is, or one thing I think is important is that, so Tuskegee is very close to Auburn. A lot of Tuskegee students live in Auburn and or Tuskegee when you go to school there. And whenever I'm speaking to, I don't know, just anybody in the profession or chatting, and they're like, why didn't you end up going to Auburn or why are there two vet schools so close together when there's still not a vet school in every state in the United States yet? And people don't realize that it actually does have some racial roots to it, which is the fact that a lot of vet schools would not allow Black students to go to them. The very first Black veterinarian was Augustus Nathaniel Lushington, who actually went to UPenn. But we also know that Tuskegee, because it was available, a lot of Black students went there, and a lot of diversity went there. So they do have lots of, they have a deal with Puerto Rico. They have lots of Puerto Rican students. They have lots of Black students. They have lots of white students too. There's really a rich amount of diversity. There's Asian students that we went to school with, we went to school with brown students as well. So it was really great for that sort of environment, which you simply don't see at other schools. So it's not that it was the only place you could go, but it was really a much more open environment. Whereas I think it would have been very difficult to be the only Black student at a different school, and potentially the only student of color would have been really challenging.
I just wanted to add, as a little plug for Iowa State. I don't know if you guys knew, but like Dr. Patterson, who helped found the vet school at Tuskegee, named Patterson Hall or Patterson Auditorium at Tuskegee, graduated from Iowa State back in 1923. They just celebrated his centennial graduating year this past year. And I don't know if you guys knew that Dr. Perry, as the dean, was out here and was part of the like graduation ceremonies here. So it was pretty cool. Like it was kind of full circle when they, I learned that. And when I got accepted, I was kind of doing some research and saw that that's where he went to school. And then that's where, I was fortunate enough to go to school at Tuskegee and meet you guys.
I definitely didn't know that. That's awesome. One thing that I really wanted to kind of bring up from a solution standpoint, which of course this is a short podcast, around 30 minutes. It's not meant to solve every problem related to diversity and create all the solutions for vet med. But I did want to ask kind of to everybody here, what are your thoughts, or do you have any tips on ways that we can improve diversity, or things that you as an ally, if you're not from a quote unquote marginalized group, like what are things that you can do in the workplace on your day to day to be an ally or help somebody who's in a marginalized group if you happen to be in a situation where clearly somebody's being offensive, or what's something actionable that you can take today and do in your clinic?
So I mean, as an ally, I would have loved it if people stood up for me when they heard microaggressions or just straight up aggression. Just in general, that's one way. Like, I personally try my hardest, absolutely, to always show my pronouns. So she, her, I try to have them visible everywhere I am. And then respecting other people's pronouns, because why it doesn't affect me. Like, I want to respect them. I want them to know that I respect who they are. So respect goes a long way. And, listening to people when they're telling you, like, hey, I felt like this was racist, or I felt uncomfortable with what you said. Listening to it, don't become like offended, and actually listen, digest it, and just try to be better next time. You could always apologize right away and keep it moving. It doesn't have to be this huge rodeo, this huge production that goes on. It could just be something that happens very quickly, and you just try to be better next time, because we are humans. We will make mistakes, but a mistake isn't a mistake until it actually goes uncorrected. So it's just an accident.
Oh, this is Brandon. Yeah, I definitely agree with everything Rachel said. I think like when you have, unfortunately, sometimes you'll have a client that's unhappy, and sometimes will be just outwardly like lash out. I've experienced it a few times, but not in a kind of as far as like race is concerned, but in other ways. I think when those kind of things happen, especially if it's towards one of your staff that is like a person of color or of a different background, or is in the LGBTQ plus community, just addressing it head on, and if needed, firing the client. You want to really protect your staff, protect your fellow doctors, and just protect, reputation will go a long way. If clients you want to promote like the clientele that you want. And, fortunately we have the ability to, tell someone that they can go elsewhere for care if they're not going to respect the staff and doctors and the rest of the team at the hospital. So I think that that's something that can be done if it was required. Hopefully, that happens very few and far between. And then like for me, I was fortunate enough to have worked in a hospital in Denver, right? I just did a neurology rotation where there are a wide variety of people that work there, especially people in the LGBTQ plus community. And, I think of it as just like any other day at work with friends. And, that's what I hope to get to at some point with everyone. They're seeing that across the rest of the country, not just in Colorado, where I kind of glorify everything because I think it's the perfect place. But yeah, those are just my thoughts.
And this is Jeff. And what I was going to say here is, like, from an ally standpoint, because there's also times where I can be an ally for different groups, but kind of piggybacking off of you two, Rachel and Brandon, would be, I learned this phrase called calling people in rather than calling them out from Tiara Price, who was the founder of Black DVM Network. And she mentioned to me, actually, shameless plug, on a Dr. Rourke podcast, Dr. Andy Rourke's podcast from a couple of years ago. We chatted about diversity, so you can go and listen to that. But instead of simply, when you call people out, you kind of make them defensive and then they put up that wall. Whereas if you call them in, you can come from a place of, example, like, okay, you're in the room and somebody says something clearly offensive or like homophobic, transphobic, off color, or clearly something that makes you uncomfortable. You can, especially even if it's a quote unquote joke, because I hate that. That happens all the time where people brush things off as being a joke, and you can still be hurtful and offensive, even if you didn't quote unquote intend on being offensive. But you can come from a place of empathy and say, you come from your perspective and say, hey, you said this thing. It sounded kind of not good or kind of made me a little bit uncomfortable. Is there a way you can rephrase that? Or, there's better ways that you can say what you just said. And coming from a place of, again, empathy and kindness, I think is the best way to go without being accusatory, because that immediately makes people put up their walls and then they're not interested in listening to you. And even though not every person is going to respond to that, not every person is going to listen to you, not every person is going to care what you say, you as an ally can also, with this empathetic talk, with this kind talk, also say, this is the space that we're in here, and this is not what I'm going to tolerate around me. And other people in the room are going to hear that. And I appreciate that when people who are not Black do that for me and who are not gay do that for me. And it's very helpful because then that also shows that you are somebody I can come talk to and chat with later, or not. It can be like an unspoken thing, and you should be just doing it not just for other people, not to be seen, but to say, this is the kind of space that I want to be in and the people that I want around me through the words that you say. And I also really like, Brandon, when you pointed out that although we are a service industry and we have clients who sometimes are, I would say most of our clients are very good. Not every client is kind, and some of them are going to say some weird things. If they do get to a point where it's really inappropriate or abusive, you can say you can seek services elsewhere. So I do think that's important.
Yeah, just to add something, actually, I was sitting on a panel with Dr. Tran, and she mentioned, like, when people make uncomfortable jokes or racist jokes and you know that they are, or something like that, you can actually, I was like, well, how do you respond to that? And I've now stolen it completely from her because it's incredible. Is you just say, oh, I didn't understand that joke. Like, could you explain why that's funny? And then they really have to stumble on their words because they realize, like, yeah, it's really stupid. Like, I shouldn't have said that. So, like, it's a really easy way to just be like, wait a second, should we think about that again? But it's, like, pretty confrontational and things like that. So it's something that everyone can kind of steal and just keep spreading that until they stop. I think it's really important to increase diversity too, because it really benefits the communities that you're trying to serve. So white saviorism is a really big thing in shelter medicine and in animal rescue, really, because it is really run by a lot of rich white women, to be honest. So it's really important not to go into communities and be like, we're here to save you. We're going to do these vaccine clinics and that's all you need. So like actually having individuals from the community that you're serving and individuals who look like the community you're serving or who have, types of connections and things like that actually really benefit your organization, the community itself, and everything like that, because you're hearing from them and you're not going to come in just as a savior. It's like, no, we want to create roots and we want to make this work for everyone. So actually having that and increasing that in our field will just benefit everyone completely when it's in terms of access to care. So
I think that's awesome, Rachel, and absolutely really good and important points for all of us. Well, I just wanted to take a quick moment and say, in general, this podcast and the one thing that we wanted to kind of bring to the field is that we are here and encouraging and celebrating people from all different backgrounds for all types of humans, regardless of your race, whether you are LGBTQ plus A, men, women, gender nonconforming people, trans people, deaf, hard of hearing community, people who happen to have a disability. You're celebrated here. This is a safe place for you. So we hope to bring a very safe place and, great place to have some fun and listen and learn about vet med, again, in and outside of the clinic. But this is a good place where we can learn from each other and grow in real time and have quote unquote comfortable and uncomfortable conversations and not be so taboo about it. So I did want to shout out a couple organizations and resources that you can look to that promote diversity in our field. So all these are from Instagram, but BlendVet, which is blend.vet, is a great profile. Black DVM Network, Latinxvet on Instagram, the Association of Asian Vet Med. They are AAVMP is their abbreviation, and they go by Asians in Vet Med on Instagram, Pride VMC, and there are many, many others, but those are just a couple. And I kind of wanted to just end on a question for everybody. And this is more of like, whatever you're feeling, and this can be one of your favorite memories, but I was going to ask everybody, what is one of your favorite memories of being a veterinarian so far? And to give everybody a chance to think, I can go first. One of my favorite memories, honestly, it's going to be very on the nose. I've done a lot of training. I just finished my residency, and that is absolutely one of my favorite memories because I went through, graduated vet school, did a rotating internship, did a year of general practice, did a specialty internship in derm, then did my derm residency. I'm exhausted. That is my newest, latest accomplishment. I'm really happy about it. I still have to take boards.
Serve your flowers.
Give me my flowers. I'm taking my exam, my dermatology boards in a couple of months. Fingers crossed we'll pass in the first time and be done. But that is my current favorite memory, is just honestly being in dermatology. I love it. And then being done with that residency, that was tough.
So I think one of my favorite, it actually really hits, like, it's really good for this topic we've been talking about. But I was doing a house call with our community medicine program, probably like a year, I guess 2 years after I graduated, after my internship. And we went to this really sweet old lady's house in Inglewood, which is on the south side of Chicago. And when I walked in the door and I started doing my exam and things like that, and like it finally clicked for her that I was the veterinarian, she just was like, oh, hold on. No. Like, she was so happy for me. And like, it's just like that type of camaraderie. And like, she's like, you did this, like, we did this, like, like she was like my auntie at that point. Like, and it was just really special because you don't see it every day. You don't feel it. And like, just the type of love that you get from your community, and how happy I was to be able to do that too. Like, it really like solidified everything that I'm doing. So, that's probably like definitely a top moment for me. And I hope there's many more to come.
Yes, we love to see it. So proud of you.
I can go. It's Brandon again. I have a lot of good memories. One, I'll keep it kind of brief, but back when I was a GP, it was my first year as a GP. Part of it is I don't actually remember the client's name and the pet's name, but it was this older cat that we diagnosed with diabetes when I was a GP, and where I worked, this client lived about 1.5 miles from the home. And she had a hard time getting the cat in and out multiple times for glucose curves to kind of make sure that the insulin's working for appropriately and we're not overdosing or underdosing. So I had this memory of actually going to her house, picking up the cat, going to work, doing it, and then bringing the cat home for that owner. It was just one of those things that just reminds you, there's not a lot of house call vets anymore, but it was just kind of cool to be able to do something for someone locally in the community that was a little bit different than kind of the stuff that I am currently doing now. And I'll always just remember that experience in that case. It's just something that's always stuck with me.
Hey, this is Chris. Thank you, Brandon. You kind of sparked a memory because I could not think of anything. I've had a lot of good experiences. But the one that came to memory was actually when I was about 2 or 3 weeks into practicing as a veterinarian, just graduated from school. And my then neighbor at the time brought in their dog to the clinic. They didn't know that I was there, the vet there at the time. We saw each other as neighbors, said, hey, we had just moved in 3 weeks prior and I just met him then. Brought his dog in, cute little puppy, little Shih Tzu, I think. And she had a really high fever. Don't remember what it was. It was significantly high. We ran blood work. We did everything. And can you fix it? It ended up being just fever of unknown origin. I just put on fluids, treated the patient symptomatically, and did great. But they were so grateful. They brought cookies over to our house the next day once the dog was home and doing well. And they were just so appreciative. So that is a really fond memory I have. And we became good neighbors then. We were always talking, seeing how each other was doing. Always, hey, how's the dog doing? But so yeah, that's a good memory that I have. And that's probably one of now remember a good fond memory that I had, especially 2 weeks out of that school.
And I love that. All your stories were amazing. So that brings us to the end of our episode. So Rachael, Dr. Rachael Wooten, thank you so much for being with us again.
Thank you guys for having me. I had so much fun.
We always love having guests, of course. And where can our listeners find you, Dr. Wooten, if they want to check you out?
If you want to check me out, you can find me on Instagram at Dr. Ray Wooten. So it's DrRayWooshen.
Excellent. And listeners, once again, thank you so much for listening to the Dr. Bros. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you listen to your podcasts. We'll love you forever. If you would like to reach out to us, please share this episode to others. You can find us and let us know what you want to hear by dropping suggestions in the comments or shooting us an email at thedrbros@gmail.com or DM us at thedrbros on Instagram. And that's spelled the DOGTORBROS on Instagram. You can reach me on Instagram at DermDrJeff, DRMDOGTORJEFF.
Hey, this is Chris, and you can reach me on Instagram at Dr.ChrisHernandez.
And this is Brandon. You can reach me at Dr. Mason IM.